It's Blur's Day, May 10th, Twiggy Twiggy.
Jared, I think you mean Thursday, May 14th, 2020, right?
Oh, yeah, thanks. I forget how to use the calendar lately, my man. I'm Jared Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. I just got my 2020 calendar yesterday. That would be May 12th as we record this.
On today's show, Michigan schools are facing a financial cliff due to the coronavirus pandemic. Not just larger class sizes might be ahead, but teacher layoffs and school district closures may be in the cards. I talk with Ron French from Bridge Magazine about what's on the table and what would be needed to avoid the worst outcomes.
Plus, updates from Lansing as another armed rally looms on the horizon for Thursday. Jer has updates on major progress fighting the virus in the city of Detroit and some reopenings to tell you about.
Let's get to it after we thank our members on Patreon. All local, in-depth coverage takes time and effort. And if you can, consider becoming a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. It makes a huge difference as we're answerable to you, the people of our great region. We're always listening and talking with members about stories, coverage, and of course, Sven's favorite yacht rock songs.
That's pretty random, Jer, but I do love me some Summer Breeze by Seals and Croft. But in all seriousness, we'd love it if you join us at patreon.com/dailydetroit.
All right, I understand you spent some time today listening, watching, paying attention to what's happening up in Lansing with the latest with the coronavirus and Governor Whitmer. What's the latest, my man?
Well, I popped myself a huge bowl of popcorn and settled in. Well, not really, but some encouraging news. Definitely 370 new confirmed cases since the day before. That makes it the fifth straight day of fewer than 500 new confirmed COVID-19 cases, which is really good. I mean, if you remember, we were well up above 1,000 per day clip for a long time. It seemed like there were 40 new deaths reported. That brings the overall totals up to 48,391 total confirmed COVID-19 cases and 4,714 deaths. Some of the other encouraging news, the percentage of positive cases being found in testing stood at 6% as of Sunday. And that's the lowest rate since they began testing in March, and it's down from like 18% at one point, the governor said, which is great news. Michigan's now number 7 nationally for the number of people tested for coronavirus. She said we've administered 317,000 tests so far and been doing about 10,000 per day for several days now. Michigan's also number 14 for tests per million people. Governor Whitmer said the goal is to get 450,000 people tested in May. She also said that this was kind of interesting. She said that modeling suggests we would have seen 32,000 more positive coronavirus cases if it weren't for the stay-at-home orders and social distancing and all those things. So, the governor used those kind of data to hammer home her message which was, social distancing is working and our numbers are improving, but, we're still not out of the woods yet. The governor said we've built up a good supply of personal protective equipment for frontline workers. We're ramping up testing capacity and developing capacity to be able to do contact tracing, to trace the contacts of people who have tested positive. She said that extending the stay-at-home order past its May 28th expiration date is something, she described it as the last thing anyone wants, but she said it's key in the meantime to keep following the orders. The governor said, a direct quote, "I know it's been hard. It's been a long 9 weeks." And, everybody in Michigan can basically nod their head to that. That's for sure.
You were talking about it's key that everybody stays at home and doesn't move around, but Sven, the governor was asked about a New York Times interactive map that showed Michigan in bright red as one of the top states where people have started leaving their homes. It's really interesting to me. And I just love this kind of data visualization stuff. What did the report say and what did Whitmer say about it?
Yeah, so this is a new report in today's New York Times. We'll link to it in the show notes. They use tracking data from our cell phones, and they compared a 1 week period from May 1st to May 8th to the period March 20th through April 30th. Michigan doesn't come out well. I mean, in fact, we're like a bright red spot. We're the biggest concentration of red, which means most people or more people leaving home. Pretty much the entire lower peninsula is in solid red. So the percentage of people who stayed home in Michigan in that comparison time frame fell almost 11% to 39% of all people surveyed. The governor talked about that in her news conference today. She called those findings concerning, but she sort of hedged, saying, well, I'm not really familiar with the New York Times methodology and how they put together this data and everything. But she did say, the effects of this, if any, won't be known for at least a couple of weeks because of what we know about the incubation period of the coronavirus. But, she used it to, kind of reiterate her message that it's critical that everyone do their part to keep infections trending down. All right, Jer. Meanwhile, another day of dueling news conferences by elected leaders. You followed, in this case, Mayor Mike Duggan's coronavirus briefing down in the city of Detroit. Some important stories come out of that one, I understand.
Yes, sir, Sven. First, let's get the numbers out of the way. 1,220 residents have died in the city since this thing started. But here's the good news. Although any loss of life is bad, that's up just 5 from yesterday. So, that's an impressive drop. There have just been 44 fatalities in the city in the last 7 days. If you think about how bad things were just a while ago, you're talking about statewide. Here in the city, it was, the brunt of the action happening down here.
Mm-hmm.
And to deal with that, they've been doing a lot of work around testing in the state fairgrounds. I've got updates with that too. The city will be dramatically expanding testing at the fairgrounds. They're going to ramp up to 2,000 tests a day by next week, which is just insane. I remember when they launched this thing, Sven, they were really excited to get to 400 tests a day.
Mm.
So one of the things I wanted to highlight was in the city, they're finding a great age disparity when it comes to the impact of coronavirus. What they found is that there has only been 2 people under the age of 50 who have died, which is just crazy, So, the impact is really disproportionate because 84% of Detroiters who have died were over age 60. So really they're zooming in and finding that there is a real problem with the virus and our senior population. Although the mayor was key to note that everyone can be infectious, even if you don't have symptoms, and children included. So children by and far have not been impacted by this virus as much, but they can carry it.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the city planning to do to safeguard its senior citizens?
Well, starting today, any resident who is 60 and up, they now can get a free test at the state fairgrounds, and that is without a prescription. And all they got to do is call their number. That's 313-230-0505. I will put that in the show notes in case you or a loved one lives in the city and needs that. That's a dramatic expansion of the testing regimen. And here's another cool thing about it is that the city has 8 vans with special air systems to take folks. These were provided by Honda, and it only costs $2 for a ride. So in the case that your senior loved one, maybe, in this time of quarantine, you don't want to expose them, you don't want to get exposed, these vans are set up so that the people driving them do not get exposed to the virus. So that's a really nice added benefit. And then once they get through this senior population, the plan is to expand testing in phases eventually so that the entire city will have access to free, prescription-free testing, which is really interesting. One thing to say, though, is this is only for city residents. The mayor was big that there are now suburban testing centers around the region, so you would need to bring some sort of ID or proof of residency.
All right, Jared, looking at your notes, the city also has planned to take the testing program to businesses, I understand?
Well, there has been a lot of news about barbers opening up. As we know, that guy up in Owasso who got slapped by the attorney general for opening up his barber shop. And one of the reasons is that barbers, salons, those are the kinds of places where there's a high chance of getting coronavirus when you interact with people, along with that
close person-to-person contact. Yeah.
Yep. And that also counts for dentist offices. And so what the mayor is doing is that he's going to make 15-minute tests available free to barbers, salons, and dentists in the city on Saturdays and Sundays so that you can put a sticker behind your chair that you've been tested, which is a huge expansion of the testing regimen to say, all right, once we get into this phase, once the governor, and we're not sure if it's going to be phase 4 or 5, opens up these businesses, to have that sticker there, I think would be very reassuring for people. And on top of that, the city says that there will be more details coming next week around financial help to get those kinds of businesses and retail businesses back up and running.
Interesting, and something that you feel like the entire country could learn from, frankly.
I mean, for sure. I mean, Detroit's one of the poorest cities in the nation, and they've done some figuring this out. Obviously, no program is perfect, but I mean, just imagine if this kind of thing was happening nationwide. We would probably have a much different discussion around coronavirus and businesses right now.
Yeah, definitely proof that like where there's a will, there's a way. But also, I think that you have to have a plan, and then the attentiveness to stick through it and do the basic kind of blocking and tackling of that good government requires. All right, Jared, we talked earlier at the top of the show about a protest planned for Thursday at the state capitol in Lansing. Well, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel has issued a warning to those who plan to attend. She said there will be changes from the decided lack of enforcement of laws at a similar protest that took place last month at the Capitol. The Michigan State Police says it will have a larger presence at the event. Lansing Police will also support their effort. Nessel says her office is prepared to prosecute people who brandish weapons, trespass into the legislative chambers, restrict or obstruct police officers, disturb the peace, among other violations. Governor Whitmer also addressed the planned protest in an appearance Wednesday on ABC's The View. She said the gathering makes it more difficult for the state to reopen its economy. Meanwhile, a planned counter-protest called Stand Up to Right-Wing Extremists and White Supremacy was canceled, according to the Facebook event listing.
Sven, this thing has caught fire online in so many ways, and it's something where you have multiple politicians hopping into this, including Republican Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, talking about how if you are brandishing weapons, if you are being threatening, that you should go through the process of, getting arrested, which was quite interesting to hear. But the headlines in the right-wing blogosphere is that, Whitmer is going to clamp down on these things. But I'd remind folks that using a weapon, even if you have a right to carry it, using a weapon in a threatening manner is illegal. Like you still can't threaten people with guns, even if it's legal for you to carry them.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that there's even disagreement about this, and people apparently think that there should be no problem with this kind of thing. I really feel for lawmakers and some of the other staff that work in the Capitol building, because frankly, I would be scared if I were them. I'm not sure I would want to go to work today on Thursday. Quite honestly, I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm really fearful based on just some of the rhetoric coming out of this and just the extremism on display that frankly the worst could happen.
Well, when you're dealing with a situation like this, one bad decision with loaded weapons can spiral things so far out of control. And I think that's one of the reasons why we got to get our arms around this, because as I said, one bad decision, one person who has too many endorphins going on, and then the tinderbox could get lit. Joining me on the line is Ron French from Bridge Magazine. Welcome back to Daily Detroit, sir.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. So some news caught my eye late yesterday that I thought it was important to talk about, specifically around Michigan schools. Now, there are many impacts that the coronavirus will have to budget and in daily life, but I wanted to focus here on the Michigan schools because it was kind of an eye-popping number that was floated for a cut for next year.
Yeah, obviously there are impacts in every direction you can think of because of the pandemic, and schools are certainly not immune from that. Schools are obviously going to have to figure out what they're doing in the fall to keep kids safe, which is probably going to increase their costs. But at the same time, obviously the public schools are funded by the state, and the revenue that the state is bringing in is just that's fallen through the floor. We'll find out more later this week, but the anticipation is that in the next 18 months, the state is going to be short of revenue, that the anticipated revenue, by between $2 and $7 billion. I was talking to Wayne Schmidt, who is chair of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate that puts together the budget for Michigan's public schools, K-12 schools. And he sort of floored me when he said that schools should really anticipate the most likely scenario is a 20 to 25% cut in per pupil funding. And for your listeners, the majority of funds that schools get are based on the number of kids that are in seats. And so for every kid that attends your school, you get about $8,000. And he's talking about a cut that could amount to $2,000 in one school year.
That seems like that would just blow a giant hole in local school districts, because in Michigan, funding is centralized from the state down, and then the school districts make individual decisions on what to do with it.
Exactly. After 1994, there was what was called Prop A that changed the way schools are funded. Schools don't have much ability to raise local money for their schools. They can float bond issues to build a new school or to buy some computer equipment, but they can't pay teachers' salaries. And it's salaries that the majority of a school district's budget. So when you're talking about cutting, it amounts to about 20% of the school district's budget that they're talking about eliminating in 1 year, in one fell swoop. I talk to a lot of school leaders, and they say, well, obviously they believe it's devastating, but how that would play out is you're talking about massive layoffs of teachers. And so at the one time, and here's the amazing thing, the one school year where you want your classes to be as small as possible because you want kids to social distance might be the year when you have the largest number of students in a classroom.
It also strikes me that there is a knock-on effect to the economy too. Laying off that many, those teaching jobs are generally middle class, generally jobs that, you can take care of your house and do things with. I mean, they're careers, and laying off that many people is going to hurt the economy.
Well, there's an even bigger economic impact that the schools are worrying about now. If there's really this sizable cut that is made in 1 year and they have to implement it in September, plus the idea that it's quite possible that Governor Whitmer may say schools can reopen, but you have to have these guidelines where kids have to be 6 feet apart or something. It's quite possible that schools may decide that they have to have sort of an A-B schedule where Johnny may be in school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Susie may be in school Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, to cut the number of kids in half who are in a school building at any one time. How does that play out in a family? For a lot of families, that means a parent has to stay at home because their second or third grader is home 2 or 3 days a week. So think about the economic impact of all these families, these two-income families, where suddenly one person can only at most have a part-time job.
Wow. And I know personally of folks who work at districts who are already starting to be laid off in response to the fear that cuts are coming, and yet people don't really know how much. Are there any things that could help blunt the impact of this? I mean, since we can't raise local taxes to fund our own teachers at this point, that's not, within the state guidelines. What could happen in a greater scale? What are things that could be done to help head this off at the pass? Because this sounds like, with the amount of cuts that the budget has to be made, cuts are going to have to come somewhere, and they're going to be pretty strong unless there's some outside force.
Yeah, the schools are sort of praying for that outside force you mentioned. What they're hoping is that there is a fourth round of stimulus money from the federal government that is specifically targeted for states to use as they want, for local municipalities to use as they want, and also specific money for K-12 schools. Right now, the schools are getting some money from earlier stimulus packages because of the pandemic, but that money cannot be spent in basically a general fund way. In other words, not just going to your or my bank account, we can use it to pay our mortgage. It has to be used in a way that compensates for the extra costs from the pandemic. What the schools are hoping for, because they're seeing the state and saying there's no way the tax revenue and sales and gas tax revenue is going to go back up in the next month and change things. The only thing that's going to save these schools is a huge influx of money from the federal government.
And how are people feeling about the chances of that when you're talking to leaders?
Well, they point to some bailouts that the states and schools received during the stock market meltdown in 2008, 2009, 2010. The federal government stepped in and just shoveled money at states to help them survive. And in Michigan, schools received a fairly sizable chunk of money for 3 or 4 years that helped them get through this very tough period. When that money ran out, that's the problem. When the money ran out, the following year, these schools took I want to say $470 per student cut, which at that time was the largest cut that schools have ever received in per pupil foundation allowance. But of course, that just looks tiny compared to the $2,000 cut that they're talking about now.
I mean, and before I let you go, the level of these cuts just seems so weighty and so stunning about the changes that would have to be made to cut that much of the budget. I mean, you've got to be looking at larger class sizes, building closures, all kinds of knock-on effects that we can't even really predict yet, could we?
Right. I've been talking to some school superintendents trying to get them to speculate. What would a $2,000 per student cut look like if it were implemented on your school district? All of them say there would be layoffs. All of them say they would have to renegotiate contracts with all their unions. They also brought up maybe we would just say we can no longer provide transportation. All school buses, they're sitting in a parking lot right now. You got to find your own way to school. And frankly, everyone I bring this up should say, if you have that level of cut, there will be numerous school districts that close, that they just will not be able to survive.
Wow. I don't have another word, Ron. I just
Yeah, I know it's very scary, and I think that figure, to be honest, is something that's the worst case scenario. There are going to be huge cuts in every department, and certainly with K-12 and higher ed, they're all going to be cut badly. Will it actually be a 25% cut? That maybe not, but it's going to be probably a bigger cut than the schools have ever received, and so it's probably good for the schools as they are to start planning for schools to look a lot different in the fall than they have in the past.
Well, Ron French from Bridge, thank you for your time. And this is a heavy one, man.
Just wanted to cheer up your listeners.
Right. But, I really appreciate your time because it's important we have these discussions, with everything that's going on out there. There are so many knock-on effects to coronavirus, the pandemic, and everything else that if we don't start paying attention to them now, they're going to catch us blindsided later on.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter if you know someone who became ill or, God forbid, passed away from this. Everyone's going to be affected by coronavirus.
Governor Whitmer was asked about the report and K-12 funding. Sven, what'd she say?
Yeah, Whitmer said that she'd been speaking regularly with the state treasurer, the budget director, and also with members of Michigan's congressional delegation. She declined to really address the report of, the 20 to 25% drop potentially in K-12 funding. But she did say that she was on a call today with a bunch of governors from around the country because, as she put it, all governors are facing huge, the prospect of huge budget cuts, and that, frankly, all states are going to need federal help. But, she said, basically, we're just going to wait until the revenue estimating conference on Friday so that we have a better sense of what exactly we're looking at. And for her part, she says she's remained committed to prioritizing education as a fundamental need. And, she said Michigan's already lagging behind the rest of the country in educational outcomes. And, education needs to be a priority. So we'll see.
All right. In an update to a couple of things we've talked about previously on the show, May 19th is the big day for Avalon International Breads as they're reopening their flagship location on Willis. If you remember, I talked to Jackie Victor earlier about everything happening with them, the PPP loans, all that stuff. Here's what you need to know. Their hours are going to be Tuesday through Saturday, 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon with curbside pickup only. there will be just a few days until I can get my chocolate chip sea salt cookies, Sven. I'm very excited.
And my cinnamon rolls, which I talked about yesterday.
We're gonna have to do a drop-off situation here, sir.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm happy to report is that Supino is firing their ovens back up in Eastern Market on Tuesday. They're going to have some new menu items beyond their pizzas, including a calzone. That is a staple of many pizza places locally. So it'll be interesting to see how they make that go, Sven, because the calzone's everywhere, but I don't think they've ever done one.
That would be interesting. I would definitely try a Supino calzone.
For sure. The menu will be simplified according to them, which makes a lot of sense. My guess would be that they're going to do the best sellers and what ingredients are available right now. Also, I wanted to say thanks to the number of listeners who said that they missed Sister Pie from yesterday's episode. It was great to open up the inbox and see all kinds of love for pie and cake and cookies and all those things. It really brightened up my day, to say the least. I also want to shout out Andrew, who misses both Sister Pie and Live Cycle Delight. Sounds like someone spent some time in the West Village, Indian Village area. And you know, Andrew, my grandma lived on Seminole, and we used to go to the Harlequin Cafe where Kraftwerk was until recently. Back in the day, oh man, I just love it over there, Sven.
Jared, a listener, also wanted to make sure we knew that the Donutville USA was open for business in Dearborn. I'm actually not familiar with that business, but it sounds like a good one. And another listener says that the Donut Cutter is indeed open on Woodward in Berkeley. So good to know.
Meanwhile, we've got some more positive news as 2 community organizations will be giving away 10,000 face masks and basic school supplies to residents and organizations starting this week in Detroit. The Michigan Roundtable for Diversity and Inclusion and the group Community Movement Builders Detroit are launching what they are calling their Race to Equity COVID-19 Rapid Response Project. They'll be giving away the supplies from the Mama Akua House in Northwest Goldberg. If you need and want to organize a pickup or make a donation, you can call 313-459-6008. That's 313-459-6008. You can also visit miroundtable.org. And of course, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. And that's all for today's show. Thanks for listening to your Daily Detroit podcast. And don't forget to tell a friend about the show. It's the best way to push Detroit's conversation forward. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Sven Gustafson. Take care of each other, and we will get through this together.
Sven, can I move to Donutville? Donutville, Detroit? Daily Donutville.
We should do a podcast about donuts.
The donut episode.